Kern County failed to honor 65 ICE detainers, 48-hour detainers. For the whole month of February, we had 25 requests for notifications with ICE for the entire month. And the reason we don't use ICE detainers is because, of course, they've been ruled a violation of the Fourth Amendment. So when that occurred, I invited ICE agents into the jail. They have access to the database, and they don't issue us detainers. They just come in and do their job and deport who they think needs to be deported, and it takes the sheriff out of the equation. So I don't know. In talking to ICE today, I asked where that number 65 came from, and they couldn't answer me. They don't know. So I don't know if the report was written by someone that didn't know what they were doing, or if it was intentional. I quite frankly, I don't know. But I wanted the public to know how it works in Kern County. ICE agents work out of the jail. They look at the people that are arrested, and if it's a serious felony or someone they think that needs to be deported, they do their job. This keeps them, you know, if they weren't in the jail, they'd be going to our communities doing the same thing, looking for the same people. And so this is a very smooth operation, but this news report was very troubling to me when I saw it today. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
So I checked with you guys last January of 2016, and at that point, you had the ICE officers in jail for about 5 months.
It hadn't been very long,
yeah,
yes.
Since October. And at that point, you had told me that ICE had taken custody of 62, and they had identified 87. Do we know the number at this point, a year and change since?
I don't know the number. I checked with the jail this morning to see how many requests for notifications that we had in the month of February, because that was with the 10-day snapshot that the report used. And in the entire month, there was 25 requests for notification, but no detainer.
What does request for notification?
That means that the ICE calls and asks, or in the jail, are looking for information on someone, and we give them yes, they're here. But this is all information that you can go on the internet and get yourself. You can find out who's in the jail, so it's not the information that ICE has access to, everyone has access to.
But you don't know at this point how many folks they have picked up after they...
I don't have that number, and quite frankly, Carol, I'm not an immigration officer. I don't care what that number is. Mm-hmm. We don't ask people what their status is when they come to the jail. We're in a position now where ICE is allowed to do their job without us being involved. And we support them. They're our federal law enforcement partners. But this report is just false, not true. And it just, I wanted the public to know the truth.
So what's the difference between a detainer and a request?
A detainer is when, the way it used to be, ICE would send us a request for a detainer for inmate A, and he's going to be released today. Can you please hold him for 48 more hours so we can come and get them? Well, that was ruled to be a violation of the Fourth Amendment in a case out of Oregon. So we all counties in California, I believe, stopped doing that. And we started using the request for notification, and ICE having access to the database in the jail, so they don't even have to make that request. They can they know when somebody's getting out, and they know who they want to deport and who they don't.
But isn't that sort of like just the same thing as a detainer? Right?
No, because this is during the time that they were in custody anyway. We don't hold them for 48 hours after they're due to be released. So if they're due to be released next Tuesday, ICE knows that, and if they don't do something by next Tuesday, then that person is released because they're obviously not going to deport them.
So when I talked to your folks, like I said, last January, it was like, I think I was told at that time there was a 1-hour window after the release that you gave to ICE to come and get them.
Well, we don't hold them, you know, the day that they're to be released, they're released. ICE is, they come and go in the jail. They're not sitting there the whole time, but we release at certain times of the day. They know that. They know days in advance by looking at the database who's going to be released and who they want to deport. So it's incumbent upon them to do their job. And it was just concerning to me today when I called ICE and asked them, where did this number 65 come from? And they didn't know.
So is the number 65 in the ICE report?
It is. That Kern County was the third highest behind Los Angeles and New York for not honoring detainers. How in the world could that be possibly true?
So has ICE said what they'll do to correct the information? Or
they said they were sorry. And if I sound irritated, that's good, because I am
What is your
extremely
relationship-
irritated with
How would
ICE.
you describe your relationship with ICE?
It was very good until today. I find it very disconcerting that my federal partner doesn't have an answer to why this report was released with fake information in it. And that is troubling to me, because it reflects on me as the sheriff and what I stand for and the way that I operate, because I'm very truthful and honest with the people of my county. And the phone calls I got today were second-guessing my honesty about things I had told the public. So it was very troubling to me.
Do you think it's possible that within ICE that there are people who might want to embarrass?
I wouldn't want to speculate. If they can't tell me where that number 65 came from, I certainly wouldn't want to speculate where it came from.
Do you know where that report was generated from ICE? I mean, they've got offices across the country.
It was generated, I believe, out of Washington, D.C.
Sheriff, so you still honor their request for notification, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So some, though, say that that's a violation of the Trust Act. That, and you're well familiar with the
Yes.
ACL
Yeah.
that came down and so forth and so on about that. My question is, have you consulted with the State Attorney General about this practice that you have here, if it's a violation of the Trust Act?
No.
Are you interested in?
No.
Do you feel?
It's not a violation. We're not violating the Trust Act. We're following the Trust Act.
But still, the practice you do is entirely voluntary, correct? You don't, in other words, you're not obligated by any law to do this,
That is correct.
but you still do it.
Yes.
Why?
Because I think I would prefer those agents in my jail taking custody of inmate A, who's a violent felon, as opposed to me releasing inmate A into my community and then having ICE go look for him in my community, and when they find him, take the other 10 people that are with him, who may not have committed any crimes, but might be in the country illegally.
And this applies only to violent felons? In other words, if it's...
I can't tell you who ICE is going to deport and who they don't. That's their job, to decide who they're going to deport and who they're not.
Because the criticism from those out there says that if somebody who's arrested for running a red light and has no felonies on their record or not, the fact that ICE is here at the Kern County jails, they're subject to being picked up by ICE because of this practice.
None of those people that you just described have been deported that I'm aware of. You spread this message to the community that if you run a red light, you can be deported, and it's crap. You know it's crap, and everybody else out there knows it's crap. But it spreads fear in our community when you say that. The people that have been deported by ICE that I'm aware of are violent felons or serious criminals or a serious threat to our communities.
So can you for certain say that ICE has never deported anybody at Kern County who's been a low-level offender?
What's a low-level offender,
Say
Jose?
somebody who's running a red light.
None that I'm aware of.
So Sheriff, I know this isn't your policy, but do you know the policy of ICE for when they ask for this notification, request notification?
They have their own criterion that may have changed since we have a new president. I don't know. But I don't decide who they are going to take and deport and who they're not going to. That is their role. You can't have me be involved in immigration if I'm not an immigration officer. And so you can't have it both ways. I don't want anything to do with immigration. Most sheriffs don't in this state. That is the role of the federal government, and this just allows them to do the job in a safe environment.
So I understand there's parameters for deportation, but when they ask for request for notification, do you happen to know what their criteria is for asking for that notification?
No, I don't.
When you said you had a good relationship until today with ICE, when you talk about ICE, I mean, it's a huge thing. Are you talking the Western ICE, the California ICE?
The ICE agents that we deal with in Kern County, we have had a great relationship with. They're troubled by this as well. I've had conversations with them today. They don't know where that number came from. So they're troubled by this as well. There just seems to be some confusion out of Washington, D.C. about who's cooperating and who's not, and what a sanctuary city or county is and what it isn't. And that's going to have to be defined sooner than later by the federal government.
So this report says that there were 65 incidents between this 10-day period where they requested a detainer.
A 48-hour hold, yes.
And you guys
And we
did not
refused.
comply.
That's correct.
But what you're saying is no one in the state of California does that anyways because that's...
None that I'm aware of because of the exposure to civil lawsuit. The courts have ruled that it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. So that's when I moved ICE agents into the jail and allowed them access to the database so they could do their job.
So it's not even so much about them even reporting this number as much as them reporting that we're not complying with that when it's not something that anyone complies with?
Well, there may be sheriffs in the country somewhere that are still honoring ICE detainers. I'm not aware of them, but there may be.
Yeah, Sheriff, I was going to ask you, in other states, have they reached different conclusions about that 48-hour hold?
No, that case is actually out of Oregon, which really is not binding in California yet. But nobody wants to be the test case because you know what's going to happen.
Okay.
So Sheriff, there's been a lot of talk now especially with the new administration, about the role that local police and sheriff's departments ought to play in immigration. And I'm quoting now from the President Trump's executive order issued back on January 25th. It says directly, it is the policy of the executive branch to empower state and local government agents and local law enforcement agencies across the country to perform the functions of an immigration officer in the interior of the United States to the maximum extent permitted by the law, to perform the functions of immigration officers in relation to the investigation, apprehension, or detention of aliens in the U.S. under the direction of the supervision of the Secretary. What are your thoughts on that?
We're not immigration agents. We don't want to be immigration agents. I have 120 vacant deputy sheriff positions today. I'm struggling to provide 24-hour coverage in my communities in the county. Where would I get officers to provide immigration enforcement and sweeps? We're not interested, we don't have the manpower, and we're not going to do that.
Getting back to the traffic stop, running the red light, you don't have those people in jail, do you? I mean, red light
No.
runners, yeah.
No.
Moving forward, your relationship, you said that up till today, like he had asked, it was good until this had happened. Where do you go now? Do you have a conversation with the head of ICE, whoever may have issued, said 65, whatever it was that brought this report out? Do you now sit down with them?
I've texted the director of ICE today. I haven't gotten a response yet. But this has to be resolved. You can't go around putting out fake information that's not true. It can have a direct impact on elected officials. People in my county believe that I wasn't telling the truth, and that's very troubling. So yes, there can be more conversations with ICE. I think they're going through a very rough time right now, and but it has to be resolved. When you release a report, it has to be factual. The news, you folks count on those reports being factual. And if it's not, it reflects on you. Fox News, I'm very disappointed with, because they should have known, if they'd have done any research at all, that Kern County is a very conservative county, and it would be virtually impossible for us to be the third in the country.
Are we more compliant with ICE agents than other sheriff's agencies within the state of California because you've allowed ICE agents inside the jails?
I'm not the only county that has ICE agents in their jail. Stanislaus, Fresno, several other counties, Alameda, I don't know all of them. But you have to be large enough and have enough inmates where they can justify those agents in the jail. Small agencies, small jails don't have the numbers that we have, so they might have one or two in a month period that might come into play. They can communicate with their ICE partners, who can then decide to come get them or not.
Right. Was it even more surprising to see this article, this report, because you've allowed ICE agents into the jails?
Well, I was very surprised to see the report, because we cooperate probably as much as anybody in the state of California with ICE, with our federal partners. We do. It was shocking to read that number, because I don't know where that number came from.
So not only did they get the numbers wrong, they got the nomenclature wrong.
If you just take the 10 days that they said there were 65 in February, from February 4th to February 10th, for the whole month of February, we had 25 requests for notifications. How could we have 65 during that 6-day period of detainers that we rejected? It's impossible.
But you don't do detainers. You
No,
just do the
we
request
don't.
for notification.
That's correct.
So they got the words wrong and the numbers
Well,
wrong.
the detainer seems to be the hang-up that ICE is hanging their hat on. So we'll have to see. I don't know. I don't know if how they mixed it up, if it was detainer versus request for notification. But even if it were, the numbers don't match anywhere close.
But if they had published, there were 3 requests for detainers, which Kern County denied, would that number even still, just the principle that they're
No,
saying
if they
that
said
they're
one,
not-
as far as I'm concerned, we don't deal with detainers.
So it
we-
would still
would-
just be wired.
the number's
back to
zero.
this-
The number is 0.
Do you think it's possible this might have anything to do with your position as president of the Sheriff's Association?
I would hope not. I don't know why that would. It just seems to me that if you're in this business of the news, you have an idea which counties are kind of conservative, which ones are kind of liberal, and this one should have. In California, this is probably the most conservative large county there is. It should have. They should have known that there's something was wrong with that report.
And when you see what's flying around Washington these days, this kind of looks in line with some of that's what's going on. Do you think that it's possible that there are people maybe within ICE who might be trying to embarrass people?
I wouldn't want to speculate that that is the case because I don't have any information that it is. What I do know is this report is so wrong and so erroneous that it just doesn't make logical sense. I rarely feel compelled to have a press conference to try and straighten out something that is wrong. But this is just so far wrong that I felt obligated to let the public know that.
And getting back to the reaction of the agents here, the people you know here, or the ones that you know, and could you go over again what their reaction to this has been?
They apologized and they don't know where that number came from.
Just to clarify, has anything changed? Is anything different today than it was a year ago when it comes to Kern County law enforcement and ICE?
No. Nothing magical occurred on January, whatever it was that President Trump took office. We have continued to do the same thing. We were doing this a year before, exactly the same way.
So when ICE couldn't give you an answer, what did you say? When he said, I don't have an answer for you, Sheriff, what did you tell them?
Oh, they said they were sorry, and I said that's really not good enough. This careers depend on this, on telling the truth and being honest. And I thank them for the conversation, and I will ultimately talk to the acting director of ICE.
So the people you talked to were the folks here in the state, ICE?
The folks I talked to today were the ones that we work with every single day, and they said you're the most cooperative sheriff we have in the state of California when it comes to immigration. So we don't know how this happened, why it played out this way.
Well, could that have something to do with it? I mean, you say if you're the most cooperative, do you believe that level of cooperation may have gotten back to Washington, D.C.?
I don't think so. I think that the president's looking for cooperation, and I was cooperating with ICE a long time before he was the president. Anything else?
Does it bother you now that we have a couple cities here in the county that are contemplating sanctuary status? Does it bother you that there's threats of withholding federal funding in that respect when it comes to, how much would that hurt local law enforcement and put more work on you guys?
Well, certainly, what other jurisdictions I know who you're talking about, that's their, those elected officials have to do what they have to do. I don't second guess them, but the funding, if this can get this screwed up, when it comes time for funding, SCAP funding or grant funding, Kern, we don't want to be left out because of fake information, and that could happen, and that's very troubling. Because there's a lot of money that comes into Kern County from the federal government.
Just again, for summaries, can you say to the people what your message is, why we gathered here today?
Well, my message is that we cooperate with our federal partners, with ICE. We always have. They're a law enforcement agency doing their job. They have a job to do. They're trying to follow the laws of the country, and we support our federal partners. When information comes out to the public that isn't true, I feel compelled to let them know that, where I'm coming from and what I say is true. I don't lie to my constituents.
And finally, for me, does this smell like politics?
It smells like something. I don't know what it is. All right.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds like
somebody back there. I'm just trying to make you look a certain way.
If anyone needs.
I can do a good job at myself.
Well, but trying
We're
to,
talking about the Wasco accident.
yeah.